Greetings, my peeps, and welcome to the All Things Basketball Podcast with your boy GD. In this episode, it'll be a two-parter. It'll be my mid-March recap. So I'll be giving you my players of the week for the past 2 weeks, as well as we'll talk about the Morant situation. Also, injury updates, a lot of them, so we'll talk about that. Some player signings, and some milestones that were reached as well. So we'll talk about all of that on this side. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, guys, so we are back with another episode of the All Things Basketball Podcast with your boy GD. A lot has gone on in these past couple of weeks since I kind of took a little hiatus there. So what we'll do is we'll do a mid-March recap. So it's a couple of weeks so that we're in the books, but a lot is going on. So let's get into it, shall we? So, all right. So we are going to start usually how we start normally with the players of the week, but we actually have 2 weeks worth of players. And these 4 players have something in common. They're playing for prominent teams right now that are zeroing in on the playoffs, that looks very much playoff bound, very much among the top 6 in their respective division conferences rather. So let's talk about these guys. In week 20, the players of the week was Devin Booker for the Phoenix Suns, and then Julius Randle for the New York Knicks. So my Knicks got a person up there. So Devin Booker, he went 3-0, and coincidentally, during that 3-0, they had the services of Kevin Durant. I'll talk about that a little further later. But Devin Booker was able to capitalize on having a guy like Kevin Durant next to him. So they went 3-0. They beat Charlotte. They went on the road to beat Chicago. And a tough game against Dallas, they were able to win as well. So he went for the week, 36 points, 7.7 assists, 5.3 rebounds. He shot it from the field. Now, this is a guy with long range capability here. 56% from the field. Wow. 50% from 3. Whew, man. And then 77.8% from the free throw line. So Devin Booker, with such a offensive weapon as Kevin Durant next to him, he's able to get his with ease pretty much. So Devin Booker receives player of the week for the Western Conference. And then you have Julius Randle, the embattled Julius Randle. I say embattled because you got a wing of the fan base who still doesn't believe in the man, but he's an all-star 2 times as a Knick, and he has put in the work. He has improved in his attitude. He's improved in his game pretty much. Still dribbles a little bit too much, especially when a guy like Jalen Brunson is around, but he's still getting it done, guys. So for the week, Randle and the Knicks went 4-0. They beat Boston twice at home, and then a double overtime game on the road. They beat Brooklyn, and they beat Miami as well. So in those games, Randle goes 29.5 points, 8.3 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists. He shoots it from the field 52.5%, which you would like to see from him. 46.5% from 3. Now, he's launching more threes now. Part and parcel because he's allowed to do so, number one. And number two, he has a foundation that with each three he makes, they get a dollar amount. So one say it's $1,000 for each three. So he went 46.5%, which is pretty good from three. Very good. And 72.7% from the free throw line. So Julius Randle helping these Knicks soar in the standings. Right now they're amongst the top 5, and things are looking up for the Knicks, which I'm happy to report. So that's your players of the week for week 20. Then you go to week 21. Your players of the week: Domantas, Sabonis, and Joel Embiid. Sabonis for the Kings. The Kings have been such a great story this year. They go 3-0 for the week, and during the week they beat the New Orleans Pelicans. They beat the New York Knicks, the surging Knicks. They beat them. And then they get a win at Phoenix. And his average for the week: 20 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 8.3 assists. He shoots at nearly 58% from the field and 71.4% from the free throw line. So Domantas Sabonis with tremendous all-around play, helping that Kings team that's going to be a problem in the playoffs, guys. That's for sure. And then you have Joel Embiid, who's in a lot of people's eyes, including mine, he is MVP caliber right now for the Philadelphia 76ers. His team went 4-0, 2 road wins over Indiana and Minnesota, and then 2 home wins against Portland and Washington. Here's his numbers for the week: 38.5 points per game, nearly 7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 2.8 blocks, and a steal and a half for Embiid. Shooting from the field 62%. He only shot 10 threes in those 10 games. I mean, not the 10 games, in the 4 games. And he made 5, so he hit half of his 3-point attempts, which is very good. And shooting at nearly 88% from the free throw line. So Joel Embiid continues to carry this Sixer team, and I tell you what, they're very much formidable amongst those top 3 in the East. So those are your players of the week, guys. So what we'll do from here, we'll do the top stories, and then that's the way that'll go. So, of course, the number one story in the NBA is the Ja Morant situation. I've heard a lot of people weigh in on it, from the likes of Stephen A. Smith, from the likes of Jay Williams, Michael Wilbon, all sorts of others as well. I'll get to that later. So here's what happened with Ja Morant. March 4th, a game right after playing the Denver Nuggets and losing a tough game to them, he goes out to a gentleman's club, aka a strip club, called Shotgun Willie's. It's in Glendale, Colorado. While at the club, he goes on Instagram Live. I tell you guys, social media, man, is a blessing and a curse, guys, I tell you. But anyway, he goes on Instagram Live, and on there, he's, being a little extra, as the young folks would say. And then he shows a gun on the IG Live. So And of course, that's going to raise alarms all over, from the Colorado police, the Glendale police, to the NBA. So you got both entities investigating the situation. Now, for the NBA, this is their second investigation of him. The first being when his close friend Devontae Pack, he gets escorted out of the Indiana Pacers arena, and he is therefore banned for a year for pointing a red dot at the Indiana Pacer bench. So this is a situation here with one of Ja's boys gets called out for it. And then also, separately, of course, he and Pack are part of a civil lawsuit that was brought against them by a 17-year-old who said that they both assaulted him. But the case got dismissed because of insufficient evidence. So already you got these few things that's happening in terms of Ja Morant and his situation there. So compound that onto what has taken place at this strip club. So with all that in the mix, of course, the endorsement deals the endorsers are gonna start questioning themselves. So someone like a Powerade who just signed him are now pulling that deal, putting it to the side pretty much until things, investigations are done and seeing what the landscape is from there. Nike, though, is still standing by him. They're in a waiting pattern as well to see what's going on. He has a shoe deal with them, so, and in fact, the shoe just came out, was dropped recently. So with that said, the first announcement by the Memphis Grizzlies organization said he was out for 2 games. Then another announcement, he's out for the next 4 games. And then the latest news is that he's in a counseling facility in Florida and is now out indefinitely. And now I got the latest word that it's going to be a 8-game suspension. So the NBA concluded, along with the Glendale police, they couldn't determine if it was his gun or not. So their findings were inconclusive. And then the NBA as well, once they got that report, they said, you know what, we won't go any further either. But what we will do is tack on an additional 2 games to the 6 that he missed. So basically he's doing time served. So it's the equivalent of an 8-game suspension. So he's now eligible to return to the court on March 20th. And now, prior to this incident, Taylor Jenkins said he had talks with Ja prior to this, to what went on in out there in Colorado. So he's talked to him then. Then you had teammate Steven Adams. He had a players only meeting after the Denver game, in fact, after they lost in Denver. And still, Ja went out and did this. So then you got a faction of people who want to blame T. Morant. Here's his dad. Here's what they say. Oh, if he was a better father to him and not a fanboy or what have you, maybe this wouldn't happen. let's pump the brakes on that, because make no mistake about it, he has two parents. But he's a 23-year-old with a young daughter. So this is a grown man, pretty much. I mean, he's still a kid at heart, but he's a young man now with responsibilities. So, and who's to say T. Morant isn't this strict father? Because all the incidents that has happened with John Morant, if you take a closer look, they happen on the road. They happen to happen on the road, whereas the father is usually at the home games. So who's to say, when his father's around, he's acting right. When his father isn't around, then he's kind of, doing his own thing. So, and then I actually saw a video of this, and it came to my attention that what the NBA did right around a little after the guys were drafted, in the draft that he was in, they had like this sit-down symposium with NBA fathers, players new to the NBA, as well as players that's been in the league, their fathers. They had kind of a round table. And T. Morant actually posed the question to, I believe it was Chris Paul's father, of how to be a dad to a now famous son, who's now coming to all these riches. And it was a question from an honest place, because that is a transition for a parent to go to have this child who can, who's got all this money now. So, but what I thought Chris Paul's father said to him was poignant. He basically advised him, regardless of the situation, him coming into all these riches and so forth, you are still his dad. I thought that was very striking for him to say that. So, with that said, I grant T. Morant grace in that he probably is being the father to him that he needs to be. I'm not going to question that. Who am I to question that? But, again, these incidents happen on the road. So, I equate it to Ja letting off steam. My parents ain't around, so I can kind of do my thing. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize the man as a parent. He loves his son. He's at the games and so forth. Now, here's what I will say. Now, do you want... and it's funny, this dichotomy here. Now, is T. Morant two hands off? I say no. But you had a problem with LeVar Ball being two hands on, the father of both Lonzo and LaMelo Ball. And remember, LiAngelo got into that trouble when he went overseas and so forth. Then you want to blame LeVar for that. So, what I'm saying, guys, you can't have it both ways. You can't, on one hand, say LeVar Ball, who I'm not a lover of LeVar Ball. I just think he's extra with stuff, but that's my own hang up. But I will defend him on this. The man is hands-on. Outside of that little incident that happened overseas, that, again, this is a 18-year-old young man who did that at the time. Outside of that, you have not heard a peep about Lonzo, LaMelo Ball. Everything has been on the court. So give the man his credit in that regard, that these boys are come to play. They're totally into what's happening on the court and so forth. So you can't on one hand say LeVar Ball is two hands on and then come around and say T. Morant is two hands off. You can't do it that way. So I'm not gonna cast any aspersions on T. Morant. I believe he's doing what he's doing as a father. I believe this is just Ja Morant going out there doing his thing without the parents around and so forth. So, and now to the issue of the old heads giving them advice. I've heard, Shannon Sharp called Stephen A. Smith, pointing to Allen Iverson as someone who's gone down this road. Yeah, he's one of the persons who took T. Morant to task. Jalen Rose, I love what Jalen Rose had to say right after the incident. Michael Wilbon, and then the ridiculous notion of Paul Pierce, who should be the last person giving out advice with what he did going on Instagram Live, but that's a story for another day. But I like what Jalen Rose said, so much so that I think Ja and his people liked it too. So what happened was Ja Morant had to sit down with Jalen Rose. So Jalen Rose now reaches uncle status, kind of like Shannon Sharp there. So since many people call Shannon Sharp Unc. So he sits across from Jalen Rose and he admits to what he's done and so forth, the counseling he got and so forth. So he seems very contrite about it. He seems willing to pick up and learn from those mistakes and so forth. So hey, I'll take him at his word. Now, there's some people today saying that, he was in the rehab center for too short a time or so forth. Here's my question to them. Do you really think the counseling is over for him? Who's to say he didn't get counseling set up for him back home in Memphis? Who's to say he's not settled with a therapist to talk to them, maybe on a daily basis? Who's to say that? So for those to say, it was a rush process and so forth. And I heard Shannon Sharp say this. The best remedy for this, I'm kind of paraphrasing, is change behavior. Now, does Ja Morant's behavior change from here to now? We'll see what happens. So, will we get a more mature, more focused Ja Morant coming out of this? We'll see. The jury's out. But here's what I will say. Your boys. I understand, trust me. But I grew up in a time where if your boy is doing the right thing and he's doing him and you still into your own foolishness, you kind of like, you know what? What I'm doing really doesn't resonate with what my man is doing here. He's out there in the NBA. He's the face of it, he's a prominent face in the NBA. Maybe I should fall back and let him be him. It doesn't change us as boys. It's just we want your light to shine. And if what I'm doing is making that light dim, I'll fall back. That's the way I grew up. So to say these guys will do that, I don't know. But that's kind of where I put the onus on. And on Ja himself, he knows he has to do better. He knows that. So he sees what's at stake. He's, he has a young daughter he's raising. So I expect change behavior. That's what I'm expecting. So that, guys, is pretty much my take on the Ja Morant situation. So come March 20th, we'll see what happens from there. Will he take the court on that Monday? We'll see. So that's my take on the whole Ja situation. So let's move on to the next news item. Next news item, injury updates. And there's a few of them, guys. So I talked earlier about Kevin Durant. He made his debut against the Charlotte Hornets back on, was it March Yeah, it was March. I want to say it was March 1st. So he made his debut. In that debut game, they played on 27 minutes. He had 23 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 assists. So right away, see the thing with Kevin Durant, you could plug him into any situation. The man's gonna find a way to score. So and blend in. So with that said, he ended up playing 3 games. The 3 games I mentioned when I talked about Devin Booker. In those 3 games, he averaged 32.7 points per game. No, I'm sorry, that's the minutes. 32.7 minutes, 26.7 points. He had 3.7 assists and 7.3 rebounds. He shot it. He's ridiculous. Nearly 70% from the field, guys. Along with nearly 54% from 3 and over 88% from the free throw line. So you're talking numbers like this, the guy is going to flourish in this offense. That's just clear. Now here's the bad news, guys. We're talking about injuries. He injures his ankle in warm-ups right before his home debut against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So now with that injury, the ankle injury, he's going to be out at least 3 weeks. So tough blow for Phoenix, who just got him back. So this definitely puts a hamper on their playoff aspirations. Will it totally derail it? That remains to be seen. But they look good with him. I'm not going to lie there. They look good with him. So we'll see what happens. And then the Phoenix organization said, if it was playoff time, he'd be out there playing. So it seems like they're being cautious in this situation. So we'll see what happens. But I am a believer in chemistry and all that being in effect, especially come playoff time. So we'll see what happens with Phoenix. So I wouldn't exactly throw dirt on them in terms of title, chances, but this definitely doesn't help. So let's move on. Steph Curry, he returns back from missing 11 games, and he makes his return versus the Lakers. He does it on a Sunday. And in that game, he plays for 32 minutes, 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists, 2 rebounds. But they do lose to LA. But Steph is back, so all is right with the world for Golden State. So then you have Kenrich Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Excuse me. He's going to be out the rest of the season with a wrist injury. So he's out for the season now for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Then you have Jonathan Isaac. Such an unfortunate situation. Jonathan Isaac, who just recently came back from missing 2 seasons with a knee injury. Now he has a torn abductor muscle, so he's out for the rest of the season. And he only played in 11 games, guys. So Jonathan Isaac, what happens to him going forward? I'm not sure of his contract situation, but I'm willing to go out on a limb here and say Orlando's probably going to, kind of cut bait with him because these are a lot of injuries to overcome. So we'll see what happens with Jonathan Isaac. I hope to see him back in the NBA because he is a talent. It's just a matter of him getting healthy. So Brandon Clark for the Memphis Grizzlies, he's out for the rest of the season with an Achilles tear. Now, you couple that with what's going on with Ja, and that's definitely not good news for the Memphis Grizzlies. And then more news on Steven Adams, who's been out for a few weeks himself. Now he's out 4 more weeks because of that sprained PCL that he suffered. So that puts him probably in line to return for the playoffs. So you talk about 2 major pieces, guys. Of course, Ja Morant not being there. So the team definitely needs to hold water until Ja gets back. Jalen Brunson for the New York Knicks. He's been out for the last 3 games with a foot injury. He suffered that in a game versus, I want to say, it was the first road game against Sacramento. So he's been out for the past 3 games. He could be ready for the Denver game that's coming up on March 18th. So we'll see what happens there. Knicks have held their own without him, but of course you want your floor general back. Emmanuel Quickly's been playing out of his mind, but of course you want Jalen back, and you want Quickly fortifying that bench that's been playing pretty well. So, especially with the addition of Josh Hart. Zion Williamson for the New Orleans Pelicans. He's going to be out at least 2 more weeks with that hamstring. Remember, he's been out for a while. He missed the All-Star game. So, Zion Williamson. Still 2 more weeks away. And then we'll evaluate and see what happens there. Mo Bamba, who the LA Lakers acquired at the trade deadline, he's going to be out for at least 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. So, tough blow for them. So, come whether they're in the play-in or among the top 6, which is, they got an outside chance at that. Mo Bamba will probably be back for wherever they end up, whether it's play-in or playoffs. So, Luka Doncic for the Dallas Mavericks. He stayed a day with a thigh injury that he suffered in a game against the New Orleans Pelicans on March 8th. And he's missed 2 games so far. So that's the situation. They kind of dodged the bullet, so to speak. The Mavericks did concerning this injury. So it's not as serious, but they're still taking it day by day. So, and then the last bit of injury news: Karl Anthony Towns. He could come back before season's end. He's been out with that calf injury that he suffered early, back in January. So there's a chance of him coming back. So we'll see what happens there. So that's all the injury news, guys. Let's move on to player signings. Goran Dragic. He is now with the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's another guard added to the mix there, along with Leonard, who was signed to a 10-day contract, then a second one, and then now they're just going to keep him. So Leonard joining the Milwaukee Bucks to fortify that bench there, both Dragic and Leonard. So, and then in Utah, Kris Dunn, name that we haven't heard in a while. I've always equated Kris Dunn to kind of a poor man's Rajon Rondo. I mean, the man can pass. He can, definitely get steals. But his issue has always been shooting. So, but he's now with the Utah Jazz, and he's really taking advantage of his opportunities there with the injuries to Colin Sexton and to Jordan Clark. So, Kris Dunn with Utah and playing well for them. In fact, guys, if you have like one of those injury reserve lists, and you got guys like Morant out. You got guys like Kyrie Irving, he's been injured as of late. Maybe you want to grab a Kris Dunn if he's on the waiver wire, because at least you'll get the assists, you'll get the steals and rebounds, of course. So Kris Dunn, someone to consider for fantasy basketball. And so that's your player signings, guys. Let's move on to milestones, and then I'll probably cut it off from there, because I got a few more issues on the table, but some of them I want to talk at length about. So let's talk about milestones right quick, and then we'll cut it off there. Kevin Durant, who we talked about previously, he passes Oscar Robertson for 13th among career points scored. So Kevin Durant still climbing up the charts in that regard. Next on the list in his eyesights, Hakeem Olajuwon at 12. So we'll see if KD can pass the great Hakeem Olajuwon. Russell Westbrook, he passes Isaiah Thomas for 9th on the career assist list. So Russell Westbrook continuing to do Russell Westbrook type things when it comes to assists. Next on the list for him to pass, he's in the top 10 now. So next on the list for him is Oscar Robertson at 8. So who he sat across from, and they talked about triple doubles and so forth. So someone that Russell Westbrook really admires. He can pass his idol for eighth place as he continues on. Mike Brown joins Rick Adelman. I couldn't believe this one, guys. Mike Brown joins Rick Adelman as the only coaches for the Sacramento Kings with at least 40 wins in a season. That's amazing. Now, Sacramento, remember they moved from Kansas City. Previously, before that, they're kind of in Kansas City, Omaha. Before that, they were in Cincinnati. So they've been in Sacramento for the past 38 years now. So yeah, so 38 years, man, and they've only had. It's amazing. They only had 2 coaches pass 40 wins in a season. 40 wins, guys, is nearly 500. That tells you the ineptitude of the Sacramento Kings franchise. But Mike Brown has them going in the right direction. To me, right now, close all the books and everything else, I believe he is the coach of the year. Mike Brown is. So that's my money's on him. So, and then the last bit of milestone news here: Joel Embiid and James Harden are trying to become the first duo since 1981-82 season, with George Gervin and Johnny Moore, to be the first duo to lead the league in scoring and assists. So it's been done 6 times, I believe, in NBA history. So Joel Embiid and James Harden looking to add to that history. So they could do that if Embiid continues to score at the rate he's scoring, as well as Harden with his assists. So, all right, guys, so I'm going to cut it off here. I still have more news to get to. We'll talk about some of the fines that's been levied. We'll talk about Paul Gasol. His jersey was retired, so we'll talk about that. I want to circle back to an issue concerning Dame Lillard and his loyalty to Portland, because there's been an article written recently. I want to address that. We'll talk about is there bias in the MVP voting? We'll talk about that as well. It's Women's Month, so they had a game dedicated to all-female crew there. We'll talk about that a bit. And we are in March Madness, guys, so we'll briefly talk about that. So, all right, guys, so on the other side, we'll have all that discussion there. So, once again, I thank you for listening, and as always, you could write your reviews on my website, allthingsbasketballwithgd.com. I'm on Apple now, guys. You can go to Apple Podcasts and find me there. Write your reviews there. And then, of course, the YouTube channel, All Things Basketball GD. You can like the video and also comment if you like as well. All right, guys. So I'm going to cut it off there. I'll talk to you on the other side. All right. Take care. So, my peeps, if you like what you're listening to, you can go to my website, www.allthingsbasketballwithgd.com. You can also email me at thatsportsdudegd@gmail.com. To support this podcast, you can go to my PayPal, and that email is thatsportsdudegd@gmail.com. Also on my Anchor page, I have a support button there that you can also use to help the podcast. I'm on all the major platforms like Anchor, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Amazon, SoundCloud, YouTube, Castbox, Radio Public, Podchaser, just to name a few. And also you can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Clubhouse, and Fanbase. So, once again, I thank you for listening and supporting this podcast. And take care and be safe.